It's your boy Nova ZDENT coming back with another think piece. Um, I've watched so many videos like TikTok and YouTube, which I've linked one in the 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 description from Young Don. Um, I've got some thoughts on the whole tendernism thing, man. Um, so before y'all call me, before y'all say I'm trash pandaing it, please listen to kind of what I'm gonna say, right? In my effort to never write a script, I do have some bullet points. So if you call that selling out of my original intention, I understand. But let me start from here. If you're not versed on what's going on, there's a restaurant in California called the Delivery House. Man, I should look through that. I know it, but it's late where I am, so I just got done playing soccer. So um, give me 1 second. It's called like Delivery House. No. Destination Smokehouse Eatery. It's in Marietta, California, right? And if you, it's the picture right here, you can see it's Gramps. They call him Unc, but he's somebody granddad. Um, that where he picks up the meat and it falls off the bone, and he just goes, "Oh, darn, oh, that's tendonism right here, right." Um, and it's created. Keith Lee went there to try out the food and see if it was actually as good as everybody says it is, or if it's just theatrics, right? And Keith Lee gave it great reviews. He said, "Man, this is good." The oxtail was 9 out of 10. He tried to go in and the problem happened where he tried to go in and give a tip, like a $4,000 tip to Gramps to Unc, and then give another 1,000 for everybody to come eat and try the food and just show that how grateful he is, for the experience, right? And where it got crazy is that everybody started to realize, right, that he was being paraded around like a mascot. They wouldn't let him get the tip because like they didn't know who Keith Lee was, like the owner, because this isn't the owner. That's a point of contention that a topic I want to talk about, right? So this isn't the owner of the restaurant. The owner of the restaurant was basically using him as a mascot, riding a wave, riding getting bread off of his face and off of his mannerisms and his showmanship. And here's my first issue with this, right? Everyone assumed this was the owner, right? Nothing. Not only this is a thing that obviously, I'm saying this as a black man when I'm talking about other black people, right? Um, One of the things I've noticed with my people is that we want to be the face of something so bad because we have so little. And man, I don't miss me with all this when all the people who say like, oh, we have so much. We have some, right? We have a little bit. There are people who have eked out a slice of the pie for themselves. You know what I'm saying? But as an aggregate, as a whole, we have a long way to go, and it is good to see ourselves in success. We thought that I didn't really think this, right? I just thought like, okay, maybe he cooks there, or maybe he does own it, but it was his function there was never really important to me beyond what he was passionate about, which seemed to be, doing the tendernism stuff, right? And everybody just assuming he was the owner because he's the front facing person. Like, have they never heard of a marketing department, right? This started a lot of the stuff that I think has happened, right? Their assumption was that they were giving clout and attention to a black owned business without doing any research of their own, right? A cursory glance. You could have typed in the name of the restaurant and said, like, who owns this? Made a call, made something, right? They just assumed. They just watched it, laughed, hit share, went about their day. But in their head, they're like, I'm a part of this. I'm helping somebody's granddad, somebody's uncle get a little bit more money in his pocket, right? And that shows how little we do. Like, I watched the recently, if you haven't watched the Somali daycare nonsense where this kid, right, Republican backed, did very cursory research on the Somali, fraud situation, and he went on an interview recently with Andrew Callahan, which I'm probably going to react to, where he couldn't. He's got to be one that his IQ can't be above room temperature, right? Like, but he is the face of this entire project. They got behind him. Now he's a proxy. The Republican Party in Minnesota is now able to say what they want through him with plausible deniability, right? That's what Unc is. Like, he's a face of this restaurant without having any concept of what goes on behind the scenes, right? He might be the head cook, but he's not the owner of the restaurant. And it's so weird that people just assumed that since he was on the TikTok page, like they've never seen a waiter or the lady from Popeyes. This happened before. The lady on the Popeyes commercials, people thought she owned Popeyes. They saw a black woman and Southern food. If you don't believe me, go look it up, man. People were shocked when they found out she was just a spokesperson for, Popeyes. I couldn't believe it. I was like, y'all think? I mean, sometimes they do, but normally at the bottom they'll say owner and operator or like founder. You know what I'm saying? It was just a regular commercial. Shaq doesn't own, the General Insurance. He's a spokesperson for it, right? So we got to get past that. We got to do some research if we're going to have ideas like this, right? Or a problem, discovering that something that you think isn't what it is when you didn't do any work to figure out if it is, right? A second point of contention: has anyone people assume that he wants to own the restaurant, right? He's old, man. Look at the picture. I'm not trying to be rude in that. I'm not saying he's old as in like, oh, he's over the hill. As in, man, he may be comfortable in his ways, right? He may just come to work, do what he does, like to do the little tenderness thing, and go home. Don't get me wrong. I'm gonna address the point of advocating for somebody on their behalf because they may not understand what they have on their hands. But a lot of these videos that I've been seeing, and you please go stop the video, go look at a bunch of the why people are mad, and you'll notice a common theme, right? Like they're saying that he's a Sambo, like he's a coon, he's Steven from Django because he doesn't want ownership of what he's currently doing, right? He may just be having fun. Not everything has to make money, right? He may just enjoy what he is doing. He's getting on in years and he's finding an outlet for his creativity and he's just enjoying that concept of it, right? One of the things, if you work with a lot of old people or if you've worked around old people or if you have old people in your life, you'll get that you know what I'm about to say, right? Or you'll relate to what I'm about to say. Old people do not see work as anything other than something that takes all day, they hate, and it makes them tired, right? When you ask an old person, real job is the weirdest phrase an older person will say. A job is anything that pays you money. But when they say like, oh, all you do is you're on YouTube all day. Well, if that person makes money on YouTube, that is a job, right? A stripper is a job, sneaker reseller is a job, but because it's not grueling and you don't have to clock into it at a set schedule, a lot of older people do not see it as actual work. So he may not even have the concept that he could monetize what he has going on right now, or he deserves a cut because to him he clocked into work. He's doing his job. Whatever he does while he's on the clock is a part of his job. Then he clocks out and goes home. Older people have a much different relationship with work than we do, especially gig or like people work a 9 to 5 or work a set schedule. So maybe he may not have a concept, and that's going to go into something I'm going to talk about later, right? Advocating for other people or advocating for yourself. Another one is like if you're melanated in any way or any part of any marginalized group, right? I hate the word marginalized, but you get what I'm trying to express, right? One of the things that aggravates me is when people tell me what I should be offended by. Like mostly liberals, like I don't know, conservatives, they're too busy doing other stuff than to tell me what I should be mad about. But when a liberal comes up to me and they say, "Hey, aren't you like? Do you remember?" Give you an anecdote, and I'm talking to you as if we're chopping it up, hanging out. When liberals thought that black people didn't have access to computers, like if the whole voter ID thing, black people didn't have IDs and black people didn't have computers. Now, I'm not saying like this was super widespread, but there were enough instances on the internet, where I was like, man, like, do they really not think we have a library? They don't think that we have computers at home, phones in our hand, and an ID? Like, and then it went into, obviously bad actors. They were using it for bad purposes, right? They were, Republicans were going around asking black people, do you have an ID? And all the black people were like, yeah, why wouldn't I have an ID? I had to, what are you talking about? There's a B&V right down the street. And to prove their point, because they took that a couple liberals who were saying, well, I can't, black people don't have computers. Black people don't know what the internet is. They're underserved, right? To prove the point that, voter suppression, there's other ways to prove that. That was a really bad take. And it's because they also didn't think past that. They don't know enough black people. Like, just because, some rural Republicans don't know black people, some inner city liberals don't know black people. They hang around liberal spaces, but they only know other liberal whites, right? When they're all the people on the internet, especially black people, right, telling Unc that he should be mad that he's not getting his fair share of the pie. If he himself is coming out and saying, "Oh, y'all don't know what's going on. Y'all don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I'm liking what I'm doing," then that's the answer. Like, if he's fine with that, then that's what we have to be fine with, right? Now, you can say, like, I don't like that, right? But trying to cancel the restaurant for that specific reason, you're missing the mark. I've got some reasons you can cancel the restaurant if that's your choice, right? But that also goes into something else I want to talk about later, right? But being mad at him for not wanting to make money is a you thing, right? You would have taken advantage of that. I understand that feeling completely. I'm sure everybody does. If somebody is not like the guy who invented the little wong thing on the door that keeps doors from hitting the wall, like the door stoppers, there is somebody who was like, man, I should have thought of that. Like when that came out, because they're not making money off of that, right? We all do that. I should have invested in Bitcoin in 2012. I should have bought a house in 1980 instead of being not born yet, Though we all understand those things, but that's what you should be mad at. Like, oh man, I wish I had a viral moment to capitalize on because he's not capitalizing on it. I can understand that, right? I get seeing yourself through other people. That's why, or through another person. That's why I advocate for putting your money where your mouth is. Like, I support black businesses. I own black clothing. As you see that, what's going on. When I shop, I try to shop black first because that's where I want to see success through my people. And, but also want quality service. I made a video about that a couple days ago. If the service isn't quality, just because we share the same skin doesn't mean you get the same, you get my cash, right? My cash is green, even if my skin is black, you feel me? And, are we a monolith? And here's what I mean by that. This is another point I want to touch on. I saw a video, in Young Don's video that I posted, he has there's a TikTok of a very passionate lady, and she says something that I found so interesting. She says, we're canceling the restaurant because Unc is being taken advantage of, right? As if we didn't hear him say he's fine with the situation. Since she's not fine with it, she's calling on all black people to stop going to that restaurant, as if we're the only ones who go to that restaurant, as if each of us lives in Marietta, California, as if their virality hasn't earned them marketing dollars, but most likely their customer base is still located in Marietta or around it. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I'm not sure. I bet if I looked at the account of that lady, she lives in some state that's not California. But she's saying that she is responsible for which restaurants come and go. If we're not a monolith, people from certain states, I can't affect. I'm in Indiana. I can't affect what they got going on in Marietta, California. But she seems to think she can, as if she speaks for the trees. Like, she's the Lorax, she's the Negralax speaking for every black person, to boycott this restaurant when he's fine with it, right? And one of the things that I think we need to do a better job of as a people, if we are going to be a monolith, is proposing a solution to a problem. Let me give you an example. This is what I've mostly been thinking about. This is where my entire thought process has been about this, right? Because this is actually a great representation of why we can't get anywhere voter power wise, besides just taking the scraps of what other people give us. In all of the videos I've seen on TikTok, if you go through the video that I linked in Young Don's thing, nobody has suggested what he should have done, what he should be advocating for. I'm going to give you an example. I'm thinking about this right now. Somebody anybody close to him. That means I'm not just saying that the owner is taking advantage of him, because I got something for that, right? His people around him should have been like, hey, look, we know that you aren't particularly excited about your 15 minutes of fame, right? Because this won't last forever. This may be 5 weeks. This may be 10 weeks, a year for this marketing, craze, right? Yes, we may see an influx of customers, and that's great for the owner, right? And that's good for all our servers, pockets, stuff of that nature, right? But you got to get your slice of the pie, man. Like, have you asked the owner? I'm talking to Unc right now, right? Hey, how much was the owner making? I'm giving you an example. How much is the owner making per month on his TikTok page, YouTube, all his ad revenue? And I haven't asked. Okay, let's go ask him right now. Let's go chop it up with him. Hey, what were you making before? Obviously, he doesn't have to tell you, but if he knows he's gonna lose his cash cow, you've got some power, right? This is what I'm telling Unc. Like, Unc, you got power right now. Let's go find out. Oh, he was making $1,000 a month off of just whatever he was posting, YouTube, TikTok, stuff like that. Ask him how much value you've brought to him. Don't just ask him. Demand. Closed mouths do not get fed. Demand that he tell you. Oh, okay. Let's say, for instance, I'm gonna throw out a number. I'm gonna be polite with it, right? Let's say he was making $1,000 across his social media, and Unc is bringing him an additional $1,000. At minimum, he owes Unc. At maximum, right? At maximum, he owes Unc $1,000 a month, right? Because he has doubled his revenue. He would still be making that same 1,000, giving Unc 1,000, right? But that's how you start a negotiation. Because obviously the Unc's gonna say, here's the time I put into all the videos, the editing, the money I put into marketing. I've had to ramp up. It was costing me $300 to do marketing a month. Now it costs me $800. So yes, this extra $2,000 is in there, but I'd have to keep $1,600 just to keep the same rate. And then I'm just doing math off my head. Please don't write this down. I mean, do it if you want to, right? But I'm just doing mental math, talking out of my ass, right? If I can give you 500 and I could still turn a profit off this marketing and put it back into the company, and Unc may go, oh, that sounds great, but you don't really need it. And then you go, whoa, Unc, we got power right now. You've got the ability, like, not just we, because I'm not involved in it. I'm not him unless I'm doing something for this, and I'm just now finding out we're making money off of this, right? Hey, Unc, do you have grandchildren? Do you have nieces and nephews? Do you have a cause that's important to you? Even if it is this restaurant, you can do more with what you have right now. This won't last forever. If you got grandchildren and you can make $500 a month for the next 12 months while you're riding this marketing, imagine what you can do for Christmas for them, right? Propose a solution for Unc that he may not see right now, right? He may not understand, because remember what I said earlier. The elderly or older people's relationship is with work. When you clock in, I work with older people, right? They say once they clocked in, if they get asked to do 400 things in that day or one thing in that day, that's all within their job description, right? It's younger people who are saying, like, look, if you're gonna add more hats, if I'm gonna wear more hats, I need to get more bread. And obviously employers don't like that, right? But older people just think that being on the clock is the hat, and tasks go in the hat, and then they pull one out and they do the thing. So he may not be advocating for himself because he doesn't think that he deserves more than he's currently getting. Somebody should be on his team asking him, hey, are you getting what you think you deserve? Let me tell you what I think you deserve, and then maybe it may jog your thoughts, and maybe there's something you're passionate about. Maybe you want a new smoker at home, and that costs 2 bands. You could have probably pay for this with 1 month of this, right? The thing that people are mad about, that I absolutely agree, this owner is, marketing is so important, right? Like, words matter, presentation matters. If they didn't, companies would not have marketing departments. Ads would not exist, right? YouTube's whole foundation wouldn't exist because they wouldn't need to spend money to target the right people with the right message, get the right messenger for the right product. The owner could. Let's go back to the Keith Lee thing. He's saying, oh, if I had known it was Keith Lee, I would have treated him better. That's not exactly what he said, but that's his implication. He said, if I had known, we could shut things down and let him have an experience. No, the point of him doing things the way that he does them is to have a natural, organic experience. He even said your food was flame and fire. He simply wanted to bless Unc and the people in the restaurant, but you were parading him around like a circus animal. Like they said, like security wouldn't let, hey, Unc's done for today. He's tired. He's shooting a podcast. I don't know the whole story. Keith Lee could have said, hey, I got 4 bands for him right now. Get him on out here. And I guarantee you, Unc would have been like, oh boy, I need that 4 bands. Like he said, oh, 4 bands? And you didn't come get me? Yes, that's the disrespect right there. You would have said, hey, we're going to take a second to take a break because we got to go. We're filming he said filming the podcast, not even going live. They could have stopped it, but like, hey, Unc had to handle some business. Hey, oh man, Keith Lee's out there. Maybe he wants to be on a show. Probably wouldn't have, right? But he would have had the opportunity to put himself in front of that, and he had some goodwill. What the owner should have done, but remember, closed mouths don't get fed. But if the owner was a smart man, he would have himself, even if he lied, right? Because remember what I said earlier. People thought he was the owner, and they didn't check. People love to feel good at a cursory level. The owner could have gone up to Unc and said, hey, look, I'm making an extra $800. Even if he was making like 10 bands a month, right? He was like, look, I'm going to give you an extra $800 a month from the marketing money that we're making because you're bringing us great business on this side, plus revenue on this side. That preemptive thing would have had Unc would have been not only happy but ecstatic. And he would have said, oh man, bought massa. That's a little tough. Don't know if I should say that. But he was like, boss man is giving me an extra $800 a month, and I was just doing what I already loved. Wow, crazy, right? Old dude would have kept more money on the back end. Everybody would have had goodwill because they'd have been like, oh man, we thought Unc was the owner, but man, at least he's blessing him. Like, oh, cool. We're gonna assume that he's giving him 100% of all the proceeds because nobody thinks to check these things, right? And it would all gone away. He would be able to continue his same endeavor, none the wiser, right? The part where he really can't come back from, and I don't mean come back from, is like he'll go down to his original, levels of business, right? I even think they'll see it not a too bad of a drop off on the social media simply because everybody's not on the internet like we are, right? You and me, we on the internet crazy. You've watched all my videos. I've watched all your videos. We're sending TikToks back and forth. We're comparing, likes and dislikes. Well, we got all that going, right? But the average person is not on the internet like that. They'll probably never know that this story is going on behind the scenes. We do though, right? But him trademarking tendernism has got to be the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. If he had done this, I guarantee you would have been fine. Because think about what I said earlier. I said Unc may have no concept of how to monetize what he has going on. He may not be an entrepreneur. He may be, I don't know how long he's worked here, but he may not be the kind of person who puts himself out there and tries to make extra revenue streams. The owner could have literally said on the back end, hey, I trademarked it for the restaurant because it is the restaurant's thing, it's our food, stuff like that. But I know I had to do it before somebody else did. That way we can take all that money and the likeness and stuff and put it in a pot and give it to Unc, or throw it at a charity, something like that would have let people know, okay, a little shady, but he did give us a reason good enough for us to stop caring about him doing it, right? The fact that he just trademarked it, knowing he's collecting money on the back end, he's collecting marketing money on the front end, and he knows this man's not advocating for himself. That's bad will, right? His marketing department, all this effort and goodwill he's built up is going to go to the wayside. He'll still see an uptick in some of the stuff, right? But he could have ridden this momentum way longer, right? He didn't have to be in the videos. He's in the videos now. Didn't have to do that. Like he wants a little bit of that spotlight. He could have been like accidentally popped into one, and then if his goal was to be famous, and Uncle could have been like, oh hey, that's boss man right there. Let's get him over here and do a tenderness with something like that, right? Like I'm not saying I work for a marketing department. I'm just saying I'm smarter than these people, and at least in this respect, right? So those are things I did not like and do not like about what the owner is doing. But what I'm trying to tell people is that if this man doesn't care that he's being taken advantage of, and he doesn't have people around him good enough to help him advocate for himself, you gotta let him get taken advantage of. And I don't mean as in like you're specifically allowing him to get taken advantage of. It's the outrage you have for him not getting bread that you would have taken advantage of, though understandable, makes me wonder, Why so tender?